life. Your time is your most precious asset. Every second that slips through your fingers is one you'll never get back, and yet so many people squander their time on meaningless pursuits, scrolling through social media, chasing approval, engaging in petty arguments that serve no purpose. They wake up years later wondering why they haven't achieved anything of real value. The truth is, if you don't take full ownership of your time, someone else will. Society, your peers, your distractions, they'll dictate how you spend your life unless you take control of it yourself. And that's a tragedy, because the only person truly responsible for shaping your destiny is you. You have to wake up every morning with the mindset that your time belongs to you. You cannot waste it obsessing over what others are doing, how they perceive you, or whether you're keeping up with some imaginary standard set by society. The moment you start looking at others, comparing yourself, wondering why they seem ahead, you've already lost focus. You've handed over control. Every hour spent envying someone else's success is an hour stolen from building your own. And the irony? Those people you admire, the ones who have carved out success for themselves, they weren't sitting around watching others. They were locked in, fully committed to their own journey. So what does it mean to dominate your own path? It means setting your own standards and refusing to let the world dictate them for you. It means understanding that success is not a lottery. It's a result of discipline, consistency, and an unbreakable commitment to self-improvement. You have to be ruthless about how you spend your time. Every action you take should be a step toward becoming the strongest, most capable version of yourself. That doesn't mean you never rest, never enjoy life, but it does mean that you make conscious choices. Are your daily actions moving you forward, or are they keeping you stagnant? If you're not actively building something, if you're not sharpening your mind, honing your skills, pushing your limits, then you are by default wasting time. And wasted time leads to a wasted life. Some people will say, but I don't know where to start. That's an excuse. Start anywhere. Pick something meaningful, something challenging, and commit to it. It could be your physical health, your career, your spiritual growth, whatever it is. Pursue it with everything you have. And along the way, you will face setbacks. You will fail. That's inevitable. But failure is not the enemy. Complacency is. The people who succeed in life are the ones who learn from their failures and keep moving forward. They don't sit around making excuses, blaming others, or waiting for the perfect opportunity. They take action, even when they're uncertain. One of the greatest dangers in life is falling into the trap of waiting for motivation, waiting for clarity, waiting for things to align perfectly before taking action. That's a delusion. There will never be a perfect moment. There will never be a time when all the pieces magically fall into place. The only time you have is now. If you don't start shaping your life today, you'll wake up one day realizing you've spent years doing nothing but waiting. And let's talk about the people in your life, because who you surround yourself with matters. If you spend time with people who have no ambition, no drive, no desire to grow, that mindset will infect you. You cannot afford to waste time with individuals who drain your energy, who pull you into meaningless drama, who encourage your worst habits. Surround yourself with those who push you forward, who challenge you, who inspire you to be better. If you can't find them, be that person yourself. Lead by example. When you elevate yourself, you will naturally attract others who are on the same path. There is nothing more powerful than a person who has fully committed to their own path. Someone who is unshakable, who refuses to be distracted, who wakes up every day with a fire inside them, knowing exactly what they're working toward. That's the kind of person who achieves great things. That's the kind of person who shapes the world. The choice is yours. You can continue to drift through life letting the days pass by without purpose, or you can take full control. You can become the kind of person who owns their time, who builds something meaningful, who refuses to let distractions and excuses steal their future. But understand this, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you discipline, ambition, or success. You either take it for yourself or you let life pass you by. The time will pass either way. The only question is, will you have something to show for it? It's a dangerous trap people fall into, one that slowly eats away at their confidence, their sense of self, their ability to think independently. It's the need for validation, the constant craving for approval from others, the endless pursuit of being liked, of being accepted, of fitting into whatever mold society, friends, or even family have set for them. And it's a tragedy because the moment you start living for the opinions of others, you lose the ability to live for yourself. Think about it. How much of what you do, your choices, your actions, your words, is influenced by what you think others will approve of? How often do you hesitate before taking a step forward because you're worried about judgment? It's a silent prison, and most people don't even realize they're trapped inside it. They shape their entire lives around avoiding criticism, seeking applause, and making sure they never step outside the lines. And for what? To be accepted by people who, more often than not, are just as lost, just as insecure, and just as unsure of themselves as you are. It's a vicious cycle. You trade authenticity for acceptance, but in doing so, you become hollow. You become dependent on something you can't control, the opinions of others. And that's dangerous because people are fickle. Their approval is temporary, conditional. One moment they praise you, the next they tear you down. If your self-worth is tied to how others see you, then you're at their mercy. You're not in control of your own life. You've outsourced your sense of value to the ever-changing, often irrational opinions of the world. But truth is, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you will never please everyone. There will always be someone who disagrees, who criticizes, who finds fault. That's reality. And yet people exhaust themselves trying to be everything to everyone, bending over backward to avoid judgment. It's an impossible task, and it leads to nothing but frustration and resentment. So what's the alternative? The alternative is to stop caring, truly, deeply stop caring about whether people approve of you or not. That doesn't mean you become reckless or indifferent to the world around you. It doesn't mean you ignore wisdom, feedback, or constructive criticism, but it does mean that you stop allowing other people's opinions to dictate your decisions. It means you set your own standards, define your own values, and live in alignment with them, regardless of whether others agree. And that's not easy. It requires strength. It requires a deep understanding of who you are and what you stand for. Most people avoid that kind of introspection because it's uncomfortable. It's far easier to just go along with the crowd, to adopt the beliefs that are popular, to say what's expected, to do what's safe. But safe doesn't lead to fulfillment. Safe doesn't lead to strength. Safe keeps you small, keeps you weak, keeps you forever dependent on others to tell you whether or not you're enough. The reality is, the moment you stop seeking validation, you become powerful. You gain the ability to make decisions without fear. You become someone who stands firm in their convictions, who isn't swayed by every passing opinion. That kind of person is rare, and because they're rare, they command respect. Ironically, the less you seek approval, the more you naturally attract it. People are drawn to those who are unapologetically themselves. Not because they agree with everything they say or do, but because they recognize authenticity when they see it. But this isn't just about how others perceive you. It's about the freedom that comes when you finally let go of the need to be liked. Imagine how much energy you would save if you stopped second-guessing yourself, if you stopped rehearsing conversations in your head, if you stopped trying to make sure everyone was happy with you. That energy could be used for something real. Building yourself, mastering your craft, pursuing your goals with absolute focus. And let's be honest, the people whose opinions you're so concerned about, most of them aren't even thinking about you. They're caught up in their own lives, their own insecurities, their own fears. You waste years worrying about what they think, only to realize later that it never really mattered. What mattered was whether you had the courage to be who you were meant to be. At the end of the day, you have a choice. You can live your life walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring yourself to fit into the expectations of others, or you can free yourself. You can decide right now that you will no longer let the fear of judgment dictate your path, that you will no longer seek permission to be yourself, because the moment you stop asking for permission, the moment you stop needing validation, is the moment you become people have an instinctive desire to fix the world around them. They look at the flaws in society, the shortcomings of others, the dysfunction in their relationships, and they think, if only I could change that, everything would be better. They spend hours, days, years trying to correct the people around them, giving advice, lecturing, pointing out mistakes, offering solutions. Yet their own lives remain in disorder. Their own house is in shambles, their own habits are weak, their own mind is undisciplined. And it's absurd, because how can you possibly expect to improve anything outside of yourself if you haven't first built a foundation of strength and competence within? It's easy to focus on others. It's comfortable. It distracts from the hard work of self-examination, of confronting your own flaws, of acknowledging the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, the real work needs to start with you. People avoid that realization because it's difficult. It requires responsibility. It forces you to admit that your circumstances, your struggles, your failures, they aren't just the result of external forces. They are in large part a reflection of your own choices, your own habits, your own ability to discipline yourself and rise to the occasion. That's not an easy truth to swallow, but it's a necessary one. The greatest impact you can have on the world is not through trying to force change in others, but by becoming someone worth following, someone who leads by example, not empty words. People don't change because they're told to. They change because they witness something undeniable, something inspiring, something that challenges them to be better. And that begins with you. If you are weak, undisciplined, unprincipled, and yet you attempt to correct others, what exactly are you offering? A hypocrisy, a contradiction, advice without substance, and no one respects that. So what does it mean to build yourself first? It means taking full responsibility for who you are, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It means mastering yourself before you even think about advising someone else. It means getting your own house in order before you go pointing out the dust in your neighbors. This isn't about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about ensuring that when you speak, when you lead, when you guide others, you do so from a position of strength, of genuine wisdom, rather than arrogance or insecurity. The reality is the world doesn't need more people shouting empty advice. It doesn't need more critics, more armchair philosophers, more self-righteous reformers who haven't even conquered their own demons. It needs people of substance. It needs individuals who have walked through the fire themselves, who have faced hardship, discipline, and struggle and emerged stronger. Those are the people who make a difference, not because they demand change in others, but because they embody it themselves. And this is where most people fail. They believe that once they've built a little strength, once they've acquired some knowledge, once they've achieved a small victory, they are suddenly in a position to dictate how others should live. But true strength comes with humility. The more you grow, the more you realize how much more there is to learn, how much deeper the journey goes. If you find yourself constantly fixated on fixing others, constantly frustrated by the failures of those around you, stop and ask yourself, am I truly as strong as I think I am? Because a person who is truly strong doesn't waste energy forcing change in others. They focus on their own path. And through that, they naturally influence the world around them. There's nothing more powerful than someone who has done the hard work of self-mastery. Someone who doesn't need to control others because they have full control over themselves. Someone who doesn't need to impose their will on the world because they've built themselves into a force that naturally commands respect, influence, and admiration. That is what you should strive for, not to fix others, but to elevate yourself to the point where your very existence serves as proof of what is possible. If you want to make a difference, if you truly want to help those around you, stop focusing on them and start focusing on yourself. Become so disciplined, so competent, so wise that people come to you not because you demanded their attention, but because they recognize something in you that they want to cultivate in themselves. That is real leadership, that is real change, and it starts with you. Life is short, and yet people waste astonishing amounts of time on things that don't matter. They scroll endlessly through social media, watching other people live their lives instead of building their own. They binge watch shows for hours, consuming entertainment that adds nothing to their growth. They engage in gossip, in petty arguments, in pointless debates with people who have no real impact on their future. And they wonder why they feel unfulfilled, why they struggle to make progress, why every year feels the same as the last. Distraction is the enemy of progress. Every time you give in to it, every time you waste an hour on something that does nothing for you, you are delaying your potential. People say they don't have time to pursue their goals, but it's rarely true. They have time, it's just being stolen by distractions, by meaningless indulgences that provide temporary entertainment but leave them no better than they were before. And the most dangerous part? They don't even realize it's happening. Distractions don't always come in the form of mindless entertainment. Sometimes they come disguised as responsibilities, as obligations, as things that seem important on the surface, but when examined closely, contribute nothing to the life you are trying to build. How often do people say yes to things they don't actually want to do, simply because they're afraid of disappointing others? How often do they commit to activities, conversations, or relationships that drain their energy rather than fuel their ambition? Every unnecessary commitment, every pointless engagement, every moment spent on things that don't serve your higher purpose is a moment you'll never get back. The real danger isn't just that distractions waste time. It's that they steal focus. They scatter your attention, pulling you in 1,000 different directions until you're so overwhelmed that you accomplish nothing. And when you accomplish nothing, you start to feel lost. You start to doubt yourself. You begin to wonder if you're even capable of achieving the things you once dreamed of. That's how people end up stuck in mediocrity. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence, but because they have allowed their attention to be fractured by trivialities. The solution is simple, but not easy. You have to become ruthless with your time. You have to start recognizing what truly matters and cut away everything that doesn't. That means eliminating habits that drain you. That means distancing yourself from people who constantly pull you into drama, negativity, and distractions. That means turning off the noise, literally and figuratively, so that you can finally hear your own thoughts, focus on your own goals, and build something meaningful with your life. And this requires discipline, because distractions are seductive. They are designed to be. The world is full of people and industries whose sole purpose is to capture your attention and keep you engaged, not for your benefit, but for theirs. Social media companies, entertainment platforms, advertisers, they all profit when you are distracted, when you are passive, when you are consuming instead of creating. And the only way to break free is to take control of your own mind, to train yourself to resist the constant pull of meaningless stimulation, and to direct your focus toward things that actually move your life forward. Imagine what you could accomplish if you reclaimed even half the time you currently waste. Imagine the skills you could develop, the knowledge you could gain, the strength you could build physically, mentally, emotionally, if you dedicated yourself to things that truly mattered. Most people never reach their full potential, not because they aren't capable, but because they allow distractions to steal their energy before they even get started. There is a version of you, stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more successful, that exists on the other side of your distractions. But you will never reach that version of yourself if you keep indulging in things that don't serve your growth. You have to make a decision. You have to decide that your time is too valuable to waste, that your goals are too important to delay, that your future is worth more than whatever cheap entertainment or meaningless distraction is trying to pull you away from it. You either take control of your focus or the world will control it for you. And if you allow that to happen, if you allow distractions to dictate your life, you will wake up one day and realize you have spent years chasing nothing. But if you take control now, if you choose discipline over distraction, if you commit yourself fully to your purpose, you will look back with no regrets because you will have built something real. You will have become someone worth becoming. Life is suffering. That's the reality people try to avoid, but it's inescapable. Pain, struggle, loss, these things are woven into the fabric of existence. And yet, for some reason, people act as though hardship is an aberration, as though it's some cruel mistake, some unfair burden that shouldn't be there. But that's the wrong way to look at it. The truth is, hardship isn't just an obstacle. It's necessary. It's fuel. It's the very thing that forces you to grow, to adapt, to become stronger than you were before. People spend so much time trying to avoid discomfort, trying to shield themselves from suffering, trying to make their lives as easy as possible. But what happens when you remove all struggle? What happens when you eliminate every challenge, every source of resistance? You become weak. You become fragile. You lose the ability to handle the inevitable difficulties that life will throw at you. And when they come, as they always do, you'll be crushed under their weight. That's what happens when you try to escape hardship instead of facing it head on. There's an undeniable truth that people overlook. The strongest, most capable individuals you admire, the ones who are disciplined, competent, resilient, they didn't get that way by accident. They didn't just wake up one day with unshakable strength. They were forged by struggle. They were shaped by adversity. Every hardship, every failure, every painful moment they endured became part of them, adding to their resilience, sharpening their character. They didn't run from suffering. They embraced it. And because of that, they became something more than they once were. So the question isn't whether or not you will face hardship. You will, that's guaranteed. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you let it break you? Will you use it as an excuse to stay weak, to give up, to complain about how unfair life is? Or will you take that suffering and turn it into something valuable? Because that's within your power. You can either let pain destroy you, or you can use it as the very thing that builds you. The process isn't easy. It requires a shift in perspective. When hardship comes, instead of seeing it as a punishment, see it as a test, a challenge, an opportunity to prove to yourself what you're really capable of. Because every time you endure something difficult and push through it, you expand your limits. You become more. You develop the kind of strength that cannot be taken from you. And that's what life demands if you want to become someone who isn't at the mercy of circumstances. Growth never comes from comfort. Comfort breeds stagnation, weakness, decay. If you want to rise above where you are now, you have to be willing to suffer for it. You have to be willing to endure the pain of discipline, the frustration of failure, the exhaustion of pushing yourself past what feels possible. That's the cost of strength. That's the price of greatness. People search for meaning in their lives, and yet they reject the very thing that gives life meaning, the struggle. Without hardship, without the mountain to climb, without the resistance to push against, there is no growth, no accomplishment, no transformation. But if you choose to face hardship willingly, if you choose to bear the weight of your struggles instead of running from them, then every difficulty you endure becomes a stepping stone towards something greater. You don't get to choose whether or not life will be hard, but you do get to choose whether you will suffer meaninglessly or grow because of it. And that choice will define everything. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you want. And if you're waiting for the perfect moment, the right opportunity, or someone to push you forward, you're going to be waiting forever. The truth is, your path is yours alone. And the sooner you take full ownership of that, the sooner you can start building something meaningful. People waste years of their lives blaming circumstances, waiting for validation, hesitating because they fear failure. But that hesitation, that refusal to step forward, is the very thing keeping them from becoming who they are meant to be. You have to decide right now that your life is your responsibility. No more excuses, no more waiting, no more seeking approval from people who don't even have control over their own lives. The moment you stop looking outward for permission and start looking inward for direction, everything changes. Because when you take command of your own path, when you stop conforming to expectations that were never yours to begin with, you begin to move with purpose. And purpose is what separates those who drift aimlessly from those who carve their own destiny. You have more power than you think, more potential than you've ever tapped into, but it means nothing if you don't act. Step forward, take control, and refuse to let anyone or anything dictate the course of your life. Own your path. Own your choices. Own your future. Because if you don't, someone else will. And that is not a fate you want to accept. Life will pass, whether you take control of it or not. The years will go by, and one day you'll look back either with pride, knowing you gave everything to become the strongest version of yourself, or with regret, realizing you wasted time on things that never mattered. The choice is yours. Focus on yourself. Stop seeking validation from those who don't walk your path. Cut out meaningless distractions that steal your time and energy. Build yourself first before trying to change anyone else. Embrace hardship, not as a curse, but as the fire that forges your strength. Dominate your own path. Take full ownership of your destiny. No one is going to do it for you. You are capable of more than you know. The only thing standing in your way is the version of you that refuses to take action. Leave that version behind. Step forward with discipline, with purpose, with unshakable resolve. Because if you don't rise to your potential, no one else will do it for you. And there is nothing worse than realizing too late that you were always meant to be more.